Daytona Speed Weeks goes virtual. Let's talk about the sim racing aspect of Daytona Speed Weeks here. Welcome inside the Scrutineering room. What's up, family? David here, back for another episode. And I am recording this on Valentine's Day, so appropriate enough, let's show some love to our sim racing esports family. Let's talk about the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. What is this series? What's it all about? How did we get here? Let's do a little history. Let's talk about the names you may hear. I know these names are not going to be familiar to you, but I'll be covering their series a little bit, not a little bit, but throughout the year here on my channel and in my series. And we'll talk about the first race of the season that took place Tuesday night as we get ready for the real speed weeks at Daytona International to kick into high gear this weekend. So let's first talk about the platform that we are on. It is iRacing. iRacing is a subscription-based online simulation that was formed in 2008, but the base and the predecessor, the roots, it goes far back further. Dave Kammer, one of the men behind the creation of iRacing, he has roots with Papyrus and Sierra video game developers. And if that name rings a bell to some of the older people who happen to come across this, if you remember when video games were on desktop computers, this was the brand that created NASCAR Racing 98, 2003. They also did an IndyCar game on PC, and they also did a vintage Formula One. If you have not heard of Grand Prix Legends, I highly recommend you check that out. But he did get some backing from John Henry, who of course is the owner of the Fenway Sports Group, Boston Red Sox, RFK. They'll come into play a little bit later. But an initial project called First LLC then morphed and formed into iRacing, which is organized sim racing online, and it has been an evolution to how the motorsports world has seen and taking development even to this day. It's not just NASCAR, IMSA, IndyCar have all been and still are partners with the sim, and they have an evolving car and track list. Both car and tracks are laser scanned so that the customer gets as real of an experience as they possibly can without actually setting foot into the real thing. And they try to make it feel as much like the real thing as possible. So, and it has been quite an amazing tool. Teams use it now as simulator work. Manufacturers use it. When we were going through the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, you may have remembered they had numerous series go to iRacing to come to TV and fill the void. NBCSN did the IndyCar iRacing Challenge. Fox FS1 had the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Invitational. Almost missed my words there. And even that series had current former drivers. I think Keelan Harvick even made a start in the series. And you just had so many things come out of left field. And also Lando Norris actually did the IndyCar iRacing Challenge along with Scott McLaughlin before he actually became a full-timer in the series. So that's a little bit of iRacing. They have over 100 cars. They're coming up on 100 tracks across the globe. Every bit named: Daytona, Nürburgring, Spa-Francorchamps, Mount Panorama, Bathurst, Suzuka, Sao Paulo for our Brazilian family, Montreal in Canada, along with Mosport. So many American tracks, dirt tracks, rallycross, you name it, more than likely it's on the iRacing simulation. In addition to the series, Super Formula just got added on. IndyCar, like we said, IndyCar, Rallycross, a GT3 vast library. The new GTP LMDH regulations are on there. So if you think about it, iRacing's got it. So now with that being said, let's kind of bring NASCAR into this. NASCAR, iRacing, their partnership began in 2010. Part of that partnership, a brand new virtual sim racing series, initially known as the iRacing NASCAR World Championship. The series began in 2010. Some guy by the name of Dale Earnhardt Jr. won the first ever race. Never heard of him. But it has been going now. This series will start its 15th season this year. And it has been one of the most niche marketing tools that NASCAR and iRacing together have created. The competitors in the series are not household names by any means, but it just shows what kind of investment NASCAR and iRacing are willing to put into sim racing, because they see that sim racing has the promise. If you don't believe me, in 2014, PK Antifreeze came on to sponsor the series. That went for 5 years, but then things really ramped up in 2019. Coca-Cola put their name. They have been the sponsor ever since, and they are bringing big money. If you think sim racing is just some guys just sitting in a dark room playing video games all day, consider this. The series champion earns $100,000 as a prize check. The series prize pool has been $300,000. They upped it to over $500,000 this season. Don't let people tell you there isn't money in esports. And oh, by the way, this is probably one of the most competitive series that there is. There are 40 drivers competing for 20 teams. I'll come back to this in a second. The top 20 drivers are automatically re-invited back to the series if they choose to come back. The other 20 will have to go back and re-qualify for the series, and they'll actually join a group of 20 drivers who have come up through the ladder, which is called Road to Pro. The 20 drivers come up. They would have came from a series that mimics the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. They race the trucks in what's called Class C on the iRacing platform. And then the 20 drivers that come down from the main series the previous year meet the 20 that come up from the trucks. They'll meet in a mini season, 7, 8. The number varies during the winter in the NASCAR Xfinity Series cars, and then 20 of those drivers, the top 20 drivers, they earn what is called World Championship license. You have to be a pro to have a pro license in order to be able to get to the series in the first place. But that's how you get the field of 40. And then in 2019, when Coca-Cola came on, NASCAR decided to do a little bit of rebranding. They made it a team aspect. The 40 drivers will be split into 2-car teams. There's 20 teams, and when I say there has been some huge involvement with this, there has been some huge involvement. We got real-world teams. Spire Motorsports entered the frame this year. Joe Gibbs Racing has been there from the beginning. 2311 has been there from the beginning when it was known as Denny Hamlin's team. Front Row Motorsports joined the fray a couple of years ago. RFK, I told you I would come back to them. They've been there from the beginning. You got sim racing teams. You got sim racing teams. You may not have heard of these names, but the Kansas City Pioneers, Pittsburgh Knights, M80. And then you got some unique entrants. Travis Pastrana's Nitrous Circus brand is joining the fray this year. For the past few years, Williams Formula One team, they have an esports arm. They've been competing in this series. And even Indy 500 champ Tony Kanaan, who has become a sim racing advocate and savant, he is also a owner of a NASCAR iRacing team as well. So that's a little bit of the background. Now let's give you some of these drivers to watch. Again, these are not household names. If you're in the iRacing sphere, you have heard of these names very much so. I want to start with the defending champion. His name's Steven Wilson. He's from Iowa City, Iowa. He was driving for Tony Stewart's sim team. Stewart Haas had an esports team last year. They decided not to come back. He races for one of the new teams, M80 this year, but he's the defending champion. He's always been one of the most consistent faces since he entered the series. I think last year was his third season. Now he's a champion. He's back, and boy, he's got a lot of dogs hungry to come at him to defend his title. None more than California's Bobby Zielinski. He drives for Joe Gibbs. He has quoted himself as the Mark Martin of sim racing. He's won multiple times. He's a savage on the road courses, but he has come up short painstakingly so many times. He is a 2 or a 3-time series runner-up, and like I said, that Mark Martin of sim racing, those are not my words, those are his. YouTube is my witness. But Bobby has always been a big competitor. He's been, like I said, his road courses are his bread and butter. That's his background. But he has come into his own on the ovals, and he races with a lot of aggression, a lot of passion, but he definitely races you good, clean, and fair. Another former series, back to former series champions. Let's talk Casey Kerwin, 2022 eNASCAR champion. He also switched teams. He actually will race for Spire Motorsports, who in my opinion has one of the best lineups in the game. His teammate Malik Ray, who is the series quintessential bridesmaid. He's finished second painstakingly so many times. He's from South Carolina, but he has been around iRacing for so long, but he puts so much passion into it, and he is probably one of the most electric figures in the series. If you watch his Twitch, if you're able to listen to his radio during races, he is a definite must listen. So you definitely got to put Malik Ray in there, and I'm on his side. I'm in his corner. I think this is the year he finally gets that first eNASCAR win. Another guy who is going to be very big to look at, Tucker Minter, who turned so many hits last year. He drove for Austin Dillon last season. He's now driving for another Cup driver who has a team, William Byron, who is Tucker came to the championship for last year. I believe he finished third last season, but he definitely proved a lot that he is here to stay, and he could be a force for a long time. Speaking of William Byron Esports, let's talk about his teammate Nick Ottinger. He won the title in 2021. But Nick's a former series champion. He is also the second winningest driver in eNASCAR, 20 wins to his name. And Nick has been a stalwart of the series. He has virtually been here since day one, but he did not do the first season or two. But since he's came onto the scene, he has been a potent force, and he has literally been one of the top runners year in, year out. You can always look to him to find victory lane. So make sure you watch out for Nick Ottinger. He drives William Byron's number 25. However, when I say Nick's second on the list, 4-time is back. The most successful driver in the series, Ray Alfala from Florida. When I say most successful, I mean that. Winningest driver in the series, 27 over the course of the last 15 seasons. So yes, that averages out to about a win per season that averages almost 2 wins a season over the first 14. And that's even crazier considering he failed to qualify for the series last year. He had to go back down to the truck series and race his way back in. So for a champion who was knocked down but brought back up, trust me, Ray is going to come back and find it. He actually races for NASCAR Xfinity Series driver Parker Kligerman and his partner, another NASCAR driver, Landon Castle, and their team known as eRacer. So he'll be in the number 69. Nice. Chevy Camaro for that team this season. Last couple of names to look out for. We talked about the winning and second winningest. The third winningest driver, Ryan Luza, 17. He won, and he's the 2017 Series champ. Won that as a rookie, by the way. Hasn't made as much noise since, but there's good reason for that. Ryan is actually down. He is actually down in Florida. He's racing late models. He does a lot of late model racing when he's not on the sim, so understandably so, takes a good little bit of his time. A couple of other drivers that do some real world stuff. Kane Honeycutt, you may have heard his name in a video from last week. He actually drives in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. In the sim world, his boss is none other than Dale Earnhardt Jr. He drives one of Junior Motorsports' 2 Chevy Camaros in the series. And Donovan Strauss from Marietta, Georgia. You may not hear his name yet, but trust me, you will hear a lot of him in the coming years. Just won the Legends track title at Atlanta Motor Speedway this past season. So definitely look out for Donovan Strauss in the near future. But he definitely is going to be a big name in the sim game as well. All right, so now that I've kind of covered the big names in the field to look out for, let's talk about last night's race. Previous to last night, they had a exhibition class similar to the Real World Cup Series. Unlike the Real World, where they went to LA in the Coliseum, they actually did the traditional Daytona Clash last week, and the winner was Wyatt Tinsley. He races for the Kansas City Pioneers gaming team, and he's looking to carry that momentum into the season opener. Nick Ottinger, by the way, won the pole for last night's race, and after the start, it was pretty even keel. First 50 laps went caution free, but that's not to say the race didn't have its hairy moments. Had quite a few close shaves and quite a few saves when we thought these guys were absolutely going to wreck it. Had a series of leaders. Michael Cozy Jr. was out front for most of the first half, and as a matter of fact, he actually led the most laps of the race. Seth the Merchant, another one of the rookies in the series, making his debut last night. He was up front for a while. After the pit stops at mid-race, Jordi Lopez resides in New Jersey, originally from the Dominican Republic, so some international flair for the series. In addition to Jordi, a few Canadians in the series as well. But Jordi actually found himself at the point of the field, and then things kind of started to get wonky. First yellow at lap 51, wrecked towards the back of the pack, and Jordi maintained the lead through the yellow. However, his race was about to get turned for the worst. Lap 59, incident off turn 2 sent Jordi into the wall. However, he didn't collect no one else, and because of that, no yellow. Race stayed green. Jordi's race was shot dead in the water at that point. The race surprisingly went green for another 10 laps. Again, a few more close calls, a few more how did they save it, before we finally got that cautions breed cautions scenario. 3 cautions in the final 12 laps. We had 4 in all on the night. The third caution, the fourth and final yellow, led us to overtime. iRacing has overtime rules in the sim like they do in the real world. However, they do limit them to 3 attempts. Fortunately, we only needed 1. We made it to the white flag. In iRacing, if you make it to the white flag, race automatically finishes under green. Final lap, Wyatt Tinsley, the guy who won the Clash exhibition 2 weeks ago, pulls an amazing pass on Bobby Zielinski going into turn 3. And from there, he held off Steven Wilson and Malik Ray to take his first win in the eNASCAR Coke Series for not just him, but his team as well. Just like the Real World Cup Series, the eNASCAR Coke Series does have playoffs, and essentially it's a win and you're in situation, unless we have more than 11 winners in the 14 race regular season. Quick note, the series only has 18 races instead of 36 like the Cup Series. So these guys have almost half a regular season to get the field, but they only have 10 that make the playoffs, and then they go from 10 to 4. But Tinsley holding off, first win for him and first win for the Kansas City Pioneers. So the winning times roll along in Kansas City, not just the Chiefs, but now the esports Pioneers gain their slice of victory as well. So that is the eNASCAR iRacing catch up, the history from the opener last night. Again, congratulations to Wyatt and KC on their win. Huge props to you guys, because that is some major stuff. And good luck to everybody for the rest of the season. Their next race is 2 weeks, February 27th. They'll be racing the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway. They do try to shadow the real schedule as much as possible, so that's why you get a lot of that symmetry from. One quick note before we finish this show. If you have been in NASCAR circles, you had heard New York Racing Team had launched an entry for the Daytona 500. That entry was confirmed earlier this week. There was no driver. Many thought Greg Biffle, who drove for the team in 2022 in their part-time schedule, would be back. Biffle since has come out and said it will not be him. According to Greg, he was not paid by the team, so therefore he was not ready to come back and run for the team again until all that gets situated. He does say he wishes the team all the best, so on and so forth. So with that being said, New York Racing has entered their number 44 car. Team owner John Cohen announcing this morning JJ Yeley of Phoenix, a longtime NASCAR national veteran, will pilot the number 44. Team will be sponsored by 100 Coconut Water for the Daytona 500. No crew chief confirmed, by the way, but that does give Thursday night's Blue Greens Vacation Duels just that little bit more intrigue. So now we have 42 drivers, 6 open entries going for the final 4 spots in Sunday's Great American Race. With that being said, that concludes this episode of the Scrutineering Room. Thank you guys so much for coming in. As always, leave a comment, give me a like. If you got anything, what is esports? How do you feel about esports? Drop in the comments. Let me know. You'll see the link to this on Twitter, on Threads, on IG, Facebook, LinkedIn. And also, if you go in, check out my... if you go in, do me a favor, check out my Scrutineering Room playlist. Got some pretty good episodes in there. But that is it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm David. This has been the Scrutineering Room. And until next time, keep a smile on your face, folks. Remember, you look much better when you have one. So long.